Hello everybody, welcome back to Dowie After Dark. It's Richie here, and today I'm going to have a special guest talking you through how to play the Dowie Tsar. So if you want to stick around and watch everything to do with those dastardly Chaos Dwarfs, please stay tuned. And today we are going to be joined by Mr. Dowie Tsar himself, fresh off winning his first ever GT. This is Tom Carley.
Woo! Thank you very much, Richie. Yeah, it can be done. Legacy list rock. Chaos Dwarfs are the meta killers. That's it. We don't need to say anymore.
I think it's definitely working with your play style, and it is very strong. I have had the pleasure of playing against this army quite a lot in all of the different variations that Tom's run it in, and I can definitely vouch that the legacy factions are not dead. They are not rubbish, and they can definitely be played very well, which is only a positive for the hobby. Because I know a lot of people have been down on the legacy factions, maybe not the undead, because vampires screams,
Yeah.
But I think the other legacies, I think it just needs people to play them, to work out how to run them. And I think there are a few dedicated players in the hobby, like Tom, like Pip, who runs Lizardmen, that are finding really fun ways and strong ways to play these armies.
100%. And I mean, we've got a limited book in that we're not getting any updates, but Chaos Dwarfs have got a lovely, fun little thing where every time Orcs and Goblins gets an update, we get one too. So yay, relevancy. There's a lot to be positive about here. There's a lot to be happy about. There's a few stinkers in the list, but there is in every list. So we're just going to tell you what's fun, what's good, and how to get the most out of everything.
So today we are going to be running through what's hot, probably not really what's not, because what's not can also be taken in those funsy games at home. But we're just going to tell you what you might want to take, why you should be taking it, and probably if you want to take the strongest list, what to take and what to avoid as well. But obviously, everything's still runnable. You can take anything in any games at home, but we are probably just going to give some tips and tricks on what to take if you want to start winning those games against those dastardly meta armies.
And also just how to punk normal dwarves as well, because it's fun to do. You know, let's face it, we're Dowies are.
That's a grudging, mate. That's going straight in the book. I'm standing for this already. So the Chaos Dwarf list is quite normal, really. So the Grand Army composition is 50% of your characters, 25% on core, 50% on special, and 25% on rare. Does anything stick out here that's relatively crazy, or anything that you should be trying to work to, do you think?
So I was just going to say, I'll run through each of the sections and just say the things which I think are really cool. Not necessarily the best, but just the really cool stuff, you know?
That's what we like.
In characters, you've got your Sorcerer Prophet, and big monsters are cool. Big monsters that aren't dragons, even cooler. And big monsters that can get to toughness 7, we love them. Bull Centaur Taurux, it's so iconic. Having a big old centaur swinging a giant axe, stomping its way across the battlefield like a mini chariot. Very, very cool.
Yeah, plus the models are absolutely amazing. That Forge World
Yeah,
one is stunning.
it's great, man. Hobgoblin Carns will be the biggest thorn in your opponent's side, and you can have great fun modeling them as well. The amount of times that I've killed Richie's runesmiths or BSBs or cannon crew with one single dude, and he's like, "I'm sorry, what? Huh? Huh?" They're great. And then we've got the Black Orc boss. I don't need to tell you that he's good, but what I can tell you is you're in for a really fun modeling opportunity because you could just buy the Black Orc or you could make him chaosified and you can have a real good fun time with him. So you're gonna take one, have some fun with it. Also, you can ride the chariot. Don't forget about that Nomad Wild Chariot, the Black Orc Chariot. You can ride that too. So that's really quite spicy.
We've been talking about this in a couple of our chats where the potential end of the T6, T7 monster spam is potentially coming, and people might be going towards more chariots now that we're getting these really stupid, massive units with poison bows that are popping up. I
Hmm.
personally don't like these big blobs. I'm not a massive fan of it personally. I prefer Warhammer to look like Warhammer rather than having one 90-man unit of goblin archers with poison. I mean, if that's
Yeah.
your thing, fair enough. I'm just not a fan. But I'm also not massively a fan of Warhammer Fantasy looking like Age of Sigmar. So if this does push it away from just the big monster spam, then that's only positive for the game, I think.
But what's great about the Chaos Dwarfs is I don't care what you lean into. My army list is going to stay the same and I can deal with it no matter what. If you want to take 90 poison archers, that's fine. I've got 2 Death Shriekers. If you want to take small elite units that are just going to be a horrid thing to grind through, I've got an Iron Demon or a Black Orc. You know, there's every single way to deal with things is built into the list. So you can just have great fun with it. Hobgoblins are a standout thing. They are running through the list, and one of the things you kind of have to come to terms with playing a Chaos Dwarf army is you're not going to have that many Chaos Dwarfs, and that's either at a competitive or a funsy level. Because at a funsy level, you could totally just run like 35 Chaos Dwarves, and that's your list. But if you want to have some things on the table too, you're probably going to be running Hobgoblins, and there's a bunch. There's 3 different types of them in here, and they're all great. They're all good fun, and the artillery is fantastic as well. I would love to see the Hell Cannon work. I mean, if you can just roll low on leadership tests, it will be amazing for you because it could do some serious damage. But I'm not that good. I've tried so
No,
many times.
I don't think anyone's that good. I can remember when Rob, so from Square Based fame,
Mm-mm.
he was playing in one of his own events, and he took 2 of these, and he just relied on them killing themselves. So he put them right at the front of his army, and just accepted the
All
fact
right,
he wasn't having any points.
fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, but look, we get bits from everything. You can even ally in Warriors of Chaos here, and mercenaries. I think we get Badlands ogres at the moment. I think that's all we get right now, but it's something. You know, we used to be able to take slave giants and siege giants, so I can't see anyone saying you couldn't take a bone grinder. Maybe not competitively, but narratively, yeah, crack on. It's a giant. It's not even any good.
No, but could be quite fun. It's a nice modeling conversion anyway, isn't it?
100%. And I mean, there is one big thing that's not in the list here, which is the Kadai Destroyer. I wish it had crossed the Rubicon with everything else. It didn't, but you know, go write the rules for it. One of you out there, one of you budding young enthusiasts who loves Chaos Dwarfs, the 8th edition ones are there. Just update them. Use it. It'll be great fun. We're already a legacy list. What more can they do to us?
Right, so we're going to be delving into the units, starting with what everybody takes as their general, the Sorcerers of Hashut. Now, if you've played against Chaos Dwarves, you'll probably understand why everybody takes these as their general. I see these as being a massive auto include, and you're either going to be running these on one of the versions of the Taurus or on a Lamassu. I do think the more competitive version would be on the Taurus, but I own a Lamassu myself personally, and I just think the models for them are just really cool because they're very unlike anything else in the Warhammer universe. Like they do look pretty awesome. But I will let Tom explain why you want to take these.
So, as we stand right now in the current meta, the Bale Taurus and the Great Taurus are really, really good devices for getting a mediocre combat sorcerer. Actually, he's a pretty good combat sorcerer, but getting him into a really good position. As we start to move towards and see these giant bricks, I'm starting to like the Lamassu more and more and more
Oh,
because
interesting.
everyone dunks on breath weapons, right? If there's 90 models, I'm hitting something, you know. And the breath weapon on a Lamassu is not that expensive at all. I think it works out to just over 100 points, which is cheap.
Yeah.
See it as a magic item that's giving you plus a few wounds flying a breath weapon. You go, oh, actually, that's really worth it.
Yeah, so I was thinking this the other day actually. So if we do go into this realm where everyone's starting to take these massive bricks of like 90 goblins or
Mhm.
80 gores with like quick shot and bows and stuff, maybe the time of the flame cannon is here. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone, and what me and Richie are talking about for those who aren't quite in on the loop. Flamers aren't that great. Flame templates aren't that great right now because base sizes have gone up, and also we're having to roll partials on the flame templates. So that means that those flamers are nowhere near as effective as they used to be. If there's 90 models in a unit, and most of the time they're not going to be on 30 mil bases, they'll be on the 25s. You're going to hit probably 11 of them and with a strength 4 AP2 breath weapon.
Yeah, I like it. That's a cheeky way to try and get rid of those Tomb Banshees as well.
Yeah. The other thing that's great about these guys, well, they're 2 special rules. The Infernal Engineer, they're engineers on top of being sorcerers. Who doesn't love that? And if you put them on one of the big things, that's an 18-inch bubble, which is huge. You know, I don't think there's any engineer in the game that can do an 18-inch reroll other than these guys.
No, it does make the dwarf engineers quite jealous. Although I'd say I think the dwarf engineers are jealous of the Empire engineers anyway. So why not be jealous of these as well? It's going in the book.
Who wouldn't be jealous? Yeah, who wouldn't be jealous of pigeon bombs? You know, the big difference about these engineers as opposed to other ones, you can't give them a gun. You can give them a dart forged weapon, which is amazing. Naphtha bombs, which are just rubbish versions of Richie's awesome grenades. Blood of Hashut, you could try and make it work. but I've never made it work. What this does is you, it's one use only. You get, you can take as many of them as you want for 20 points each. You make a single attack roll. If it hits, then you use your opponent's armor save as your to wound roll. So if they have a 2-up save, it's 2s to wound, and then it's d6 wounds with no armor save. So it's pretty
Mhm.
cool, but
Yeah.
you're only weapon skill 5.
I, I I
You,
I don't know. I've seen these used against me a few times, because you can take. Can you take multiples of these?
yeah, as many as you want, as many as you want.
So I've played against Matt Howley. I don't know if anybody of you know him. He's a really good player as well. And he
Hmm.
tried to use these on me and just failed all of them. It was great.
Yeah, I mean, if you're using it, it's not going to be against a unit champion, is it? It's going to be against something scary, and your weapon skill 5. So, it's not going to be 2s to hit or 3s to hit, is it? It's going to be 4s, maybe even 5s.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
yeah, scary. The thing that makes them also really cool is Sorcerer's Curse. So, miscasting is pretty wild in this edition. These guys, though, can just say, "No, I'm hard." So you roll a toughness test. If you fail, so that's 5s or 6s, you lose a wound, gain a point of toughness, and don't roll a miscast. This is how you can get your big flying monsters up to toughness 8, 9, 10 quite quickly.
For those of you who don't know the lore reasoning behind this, basically the Chaos Dwarves, dwarves in general don't use magic. They use runes that they empower onto their weapons and on their armor. But the Chaos Dwarves, with their pact with Hashut, basically got granted the right to be able to use magic. But the problem with that is it ends up turning their bodies to stone. So this rule is basically showing that on the model. So they're getting kind of tougher, they're getting kind of slower. And
Hmm.
yeah, it means, but the problem is, it's not even really a downside because it's technically making them better, and they can ignore the miscasts, which is absolutely crazy.
Yeah, on your level 2s on foot, it's pretty scary because they only have the 2 wounds to give. So it's still pretty dicey. But on the thing on a bull, he doesn't care if he's a statue. Bull carries him. He's fine.
Yeah.
I've got an interesting little tidbit as well about Hashut, where that even comes from. The truth to this, I don't really know. I saw it on a Jordan Sorcery video, I think, where you had all the guys discussing. I say all the guys. This is in the 90s in Games Workshop, discussing Chaos Dwarves and what they were going to do. And one of the guys had a terrible, terrible cold and kept on sneezing. So that's what they decided to name the god because Hachoo, Hachoo, bless you. And that is where Hashut got his name.
Oh, that's absolutely amazing.
Yeah. So there we go. Sorcerer's great. Big hat optional, but you want to do it. Some fun little loadouts you can put on him. I run mine with Talisman of Protection, Mantle of Stone, and Obsidian Vambraces. It just makes him nigh on unkillable. So it's a 5-up save that can't be changed, a 5-up ward, +1 toughness, and +1 strength and magic res. He's lovely. He's great.
The only downside with taking the Mantle of Stone is that it does reduce your initiative as well. So watch out for that, because if you take multiple Mantles of Stone, well, you can reduce your initiative down to 0, which means that even if you're
Hmm.
charging, you're only going to be initiative 3. So watch out for that, everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. You are initiative dwarf anyway, so you're not, it's not like you're sacrificing a huge number here. It's not like you're an elf turning your initiative 7 down to 2. So yeah, sorcerers.
I think they are a pretty mainstay in most Chaos Dwarf armies. I think if you're not taking these, you're probably missing out. So going on to the next characters, so we've got the Infernal Guard Commanders and the Bull Centaur Taroks. Now, so for the Infernal Guard Commanders, I don't really see too much of a point outside of Funzy Games taking the Infernal Castellan, but I can see uses for the Seneschal being your BSB if you're taking big blocks of infantry. And for the
Hmm.
Bull Centaur Tarek, I mean, it's just cool. Like, I'm not sure how competitive it is. I'll leave that down to you, Tom. But the model is awesome, and the rules are pretty good themselves. I do understand that there is a bit of a caveat with the Tarot because you have to take the Bull Centaur renders. So if you're not
Hmm.
fully going down that
Yeah.
path, it's probably not worth taking. But if you're making a full force that's based around the centaurs, I think is a really good option to take.
100%. And I think there's one thing that just needs to be spoken about on this entire page. If we're talking from a competitive standpoint, there is one thing on this page which is worth speaking about, which is the Infernal Seneschal, with the BSB running Lamassu's Beard banner. That's the only thing I can see the point of here on a competitive level. Now, that's not to say the Tauruk's bad, but you're spending about another 200 points over whatever he costs to take a unit of 3 Bull Centaur Rendors, and you can only take them in 3s. So that really limits his capability because that's 300 points out of your special section. an area where all of the good stuff is in this list. And also, you're spending a lot on characters and core already, so you don't have 300 points to throw away. So that's it from a competitive standpoint. From a funsies standpoint, with the Infernal Castellan, look your opponent dead in the eye and say, "Give me one good reason why my king can't ride that bull." Just put him on the Bale Taurus. It's fine. We're not at a tournament. It's Friday night. We're at the local club, and you've got a really sick looking dude on a cow. Just run him on that. And then he's really usable and he's great fun.
If anything, I'd much prefer to play against the Castellan because you won't be casting Storm of Ash onto him.
Exactly. It changes the game up entirely. And, Storm of Ash is a -1 to hit bubble within 9 inches that all the sorcerers can get as a signature spell. This guy won't be doing that, but he can take guns. He can take really good weapons. He can take shields. He can take him for 100 points of really fun magic items. So, yeah, I pose it to you, Richie, that there is no damn reason why he can't fly that bull. Obviously not the Lamassu, but why he can't run the bull in a friendly game. And also in a friendly game, there's no damn reason you can't run the Toruk without the bull centaurs. It is not going to break anything.
Yeah, like
Give your
100%. I think a lot of people have got to remember that this is a funsy game to play with your friends. There's not that many people that are out there playing in competitive events. So don't try and class all of your games at home as competitive events. Have some fun with it. I think a lot of people forget that, well, the game was designed just to have fun with. So just have fun with it, everyone. Like, you don't
well,
have to be uber serious all the time. Like us, like we're some pretty sweaty tournament players. Like we've been playing in loads of events for
yeah,
years. But we still have those stupid games at home where we just run absolutely crazy stuff for no reason. Like I quite like running my little Slayer army that just gets absolutely smashed. So you don't need to
100%.
play full competitive all the time. Just have fun with it. It's a game.
Yeah, it is a game. So yeah, the Toruk is just fun. He's an awesome model. He's a chariot with 360 line of sight. Just think about that for a second. You might say, "Oh, he's not a chariot. He's monstrous cavalry." Okay, cool. He's got 4 wounds. He's toughness 5, and he does D3+1 impact hits with AB2. Boy is a chariot that can charge you out of nowhere. So he's really good, but it's just the problem of got to take the bull centaurs.
Yeah, I mean, if you're
So yeah.
fully making your force around those bull centaurs, because let's face it, they look awesome. There's some really cool models for
Hmm.
them. There's also some really nice 3D sculpts that you can get for them. So if you're going to go down that route, then this guy's a necessity. Like even taking 2 of these and just going full on Stampede could be pretty cool. I mean, you probably won't win a tournament with it, but you'll have a fucking good time on those mid tables.
Even talking about it now, Richie, is inspiring me to write a list around it. So who knows? We might be talking 6 months about I came absolute dead last or first with it. Who knows?
I mean, I kind of want to do it now, although I don't think I can commit into some evil dwarves after playing the the stoic defenders of the hold for so long.
Your channel will just combust and set on fire.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so, mate. I think so. Right. So next up, we've got the Hobgoblin Khans and their giant wolves that they can ride. These,
yeah.
when you first look at them for 45 points, you're like, okay, it's just a goblin hero, whatever. But I've seen these used into great effect because they're so cheap. You give them a great weapon, they can get up to strength bloody 6, and they're a
Mm,
nuisance. They are so
they
good.
are. So there's a few key rules here that get overlooked really quickly. Backstab. It means that if you're going into the flank or rear of something, you're re-rolling hits. Yeah, you've got pseudo hatred on a character that's weapon skill 5. So that's amazing. The giant wolf as well comes with fire and flee as standard. You're not paying for it. And evasive comes for free on the card. So what it means is you are a really maneuverable piece that is incredibly hard for your enemy to tag down. Remember, he's a lone character still when he's on a wolf by himself. So overruns, he can still evade out of the way. This guy is so hard to tag down, and you can keep him really cheap, and you can run multiple of them cheap. On a wolf with a great weapon is what, 48 points, 49 points. That's nothing. And each one of these unlocks a unit of wolf riders. So they are very, very good.
Yeah, I do really rate these. Like they're really good to either just be standalone pieces, or if you have them running around with some of the other wolf riders, they just become a really annoying piece to try and tag down. Because what they'll do is they'll come up the flanks, either going after your war machines or going for like the smaller units or to try and get into your rear. And anything little that you've got that you're going to try and send into these, suddenly you're getting hit with a hero that's got 3 attacks, weapon skill 5, strength 6 with a great weapon. and it's probably going to kill your little unit that you've sent to deal with them. So I really, really rate these. I think they're like a kind
Yeah.
of a slept-on piece in most armies that I think are almost an auto-include.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have them in my list currently. It's because I took it out because I'm not playing a very mobile army, and my hobgoblins, I'm not running a big brick of them because that's the other usage of these is putting a brick of hobgoblins up to leadership 10 with Warhammer because normally they wouldn't get general's leadership because they are levies, and this guy's levies too. So yeah, I took him out to put a demon smith sorcerer in because of the engineering to look after my artillery pieces. I've run lists without those artillery pieces where I'm running two of these guys, and I adore them, and they make their points back every game. Every
Yeah.
single game.
Yeah, I think definitely if you're running multiple of the flying heroes, then these coming up support are very, very good if you're not going down the artillery line. I know you're
Yeah.
enjoying the artillery at the moment, Tom, but I can imagine at some point you're probably going to get bored of that and go back to these.
Oh, there'll be an event where I'll roll misfires non-stop, and then I'll put them on the shelf for 3 months and say, "No, artillery's silly," and then I'll go back to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've all been there. I've personally been playing without any artillery in my dwarf army now for about 3 weeks, just running Doom Seekers instead. Been really
And how does
enjoying
that
it.
feel?
I mean, it's fun. It's completely stupid, and it's probably going to lose me games, but it's hilarious. I love it.
Yeah, it's all about having the fun sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. So next up, we are looking at your core tax, which aren't. Oh no, these aren't a core tax. Actually, they're the special
Hold.
tax.
Yeah. So everyone right now who's looking at this going, "These are amazing." Yeah, they are. They're so good. They're in the book first, and they're not the core unit. They're the special one. And God, if these were core, oh, I'd take a brick of 30 of them every single game. They're not. They're special. So we'll still talk about them right now, but please bear in mind that these are a special unit, not a core unit.
For anyone that has watched my videos about what the best units are in the dwarf book, so these have exactly the same issue as the hammerers. If you look at them on paper, they are absolutely amazing. And why wouldn't you take them? The problem is that they're in a special, which suddenly just completely changes your outlook on them. If these were core, you would take 500-600 points of these, but because they're in special, they're fighting against other stuff that you need to take to be able to boost your army, such as artillery, the iron demons, and they're just taking points away from stuff that you need. Because in your core, you're going to be taking the hobgoblins or other dwarves on foot with fire glaives or blunderbusses potentially, and suddenly you just don't have room for these unless you're playing into a full on foot dwarf list with some artillery cover behind. Then you could potentially take these. And I would quite like to see that because I think these, when they've got a couple of buffs from Storm of Ash, don't forget everyone that you can get multiple Storm of Ash effects affecting your units. So if you have 2 or 3 wizards casting Storm of Ash, you could potentially get your units down to -3. So a unit of these could be ultimately tanky, sat there with nothing really hurting them.
Yeah, they're a really good candidate for the Lamassu's Beard banner, which gives you the 5-up ward and the magic resistance. So, they're really good for that. They're only 8 points more than the basic Dwarf Warrior. And for that, you get full plate armor, drilled, ensorcelled weapons, quell panic, shield wall. That's nothing at all. They're very cheap for what they do, but they are very expensive at the same time. And I know that sounds like I've just talked over myself, but hear me out here. They are one of the most expensive, I think, the most expensive infantry unit in the book. And the Chaos Dwarf list doesn't lend itself competitively very well to being a static list. It likes to be a lot more reactionary. And it's very hard to be reactionary with a unit that costs so much. Just think about it this way: you can only take them in tens, and 10 of them before you've done anything is 190 points. So that means you're sacrificing an artillery, you're sacrificing half an iron demon, a unit of bull centaurs, and it starts really hurting fast. If you took, for example, there's something me and Richie have spoken about in the past. If you did take the combat characters, so your seneschal or your overseer as your general, it would be really cool if you could take 0 to 1 of these as core. For example, like in the Royal Clan list, how you can do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, something maybe to think about in your at-home games. From a competitive standpoint, yet to see these work, although there is a world in which they do.
I think because they're drilled, obviously you could use the same kind of techniques that a normal dwarf army would use with these. The problem with the Chaos Dwarves, if you don't have anything like an anvil and you don't have access to battle magic as well, so there's no kind of way to quickly move these up the board, which is
You
a
do
little
get
bit.
see the shadows. You do get Seed of Shadows, so with drilled, that's a 36-inch movement.
Oh,
So
okay,
that is
right.
spicy. But then you are going to be yeeting these off into the nether and praying heavily. If you're taking these, it's probably a reason to take an overseer as well, or even a demon smith on foot in the unit. They could absolutely work. They're not bad by any extent. I'm just saying, for me, they're not on my radar.
No, definitely the same as the hammers. They're like almost too good on paper, which means you can't take them.
Yeah, when they're a unit of dwarves, people just go, cool, so I'm going to avoid that then.
Like you're looking at that
Yeah.
weapon skill 5, strength 4. I mean, they're going to be strength 6 because you're going to be taking great weapons on them probably, and 2 attacks each,
Yeah.
which is spicy.
Yeah, and if they use their hand weapons, they're still AP1 magic, so you can run them hand weapon and shield happily. They're halfway between hammers and chosen chaos warriors.
Yeah, I think you
Um,
can definitely make a build around these. I just haven't seen anyone do it yet, and I think it would be a glorious day when someone does. Next up, we do have the actual Cortax, which I'm not sure why it
mhm,
wasn't first, but here we go. So this is the Infernal Guard. So these are your normal Chaos Dwarf warriors. They can be equipped with great weapons, fire glaives, blunderbusses, or just hand weapons. These are your just kind of general everyday dwarves, and you have to take 1 unit of these. So, Tom,
mhm.
which ones are the best way to run these, and what's your favorite ways?
So for me, how you run your infernal guard really dictates how the rest of your army is going to function. So you've got your four different loadouts that you can have for them. So great weapons, fire glaives, blunderbusses, hand weapon, and shield. Although you can take shield on any of if you are running them with either great weapons or hand weapon and shield, you're probably going for a block between 16 and 20 in size and using it as a large anvil around that your rest of your army can anchor to. So if you're doing that, it really will decide what the rest of your list contains. There'll probably be a decent bit of artillery there, bolt throwers, other ranged elements to your army, maybe less of things like bull centaurs. If you're taking fire glaives, I recommend you take them in small amounts, units of 10 to 12, no more than that. And they're a really good candidate that you have to take 1 unit of these, chuck fire glaives on them, move on, 150 points, job done. They're handguns with an 18-inch range that are halberds in combat. What's not to love? With the hail shot blunderbusses, you have to go for a big brick of these because a unit of 10 of them, or even a detachment of 5, isn't doing the business. They get the special rule where they're re-rolling wounds if more than 20 of them fire at once. That is pretty amazing, but you are then having to lean into magical elements like travel mystical pathways in order to get them into a decent position. Also, you're really putting drilled on them in that situation. And again, that really decides how your list is being built. Black Shard armor, I almost always take it. It depends. Are you seeing a lot of fire magic? If you're coming up a lot against a lot of battle magic, take Black Shard armor. Careful though, sisters can just decide to say, "Oh, I'm taking elementalism instead and taking Plague of Rust," so it doesn't cancel Wood Elves. It just makes them change their tactics.
Yeah, which to be fair, you probably want them to change to elementalism because Pillar of Fire is busted at the moment.
Well, yeah. When you build into it, you want them to take it. You know.
Yeah, funny enough, I've actually been taking the Rune of the Furnace on my anvil for absolutely no reason because the strength of the Pillar of Fire can't even wound toughness 10
Oh,
anvil.
when it's
So
toughness 10, yeah, yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
that's a 5 points I've been wasting for the last few weeks.
Here you go. Have a musician, Richie. There you
I
go.
know.
So yeah, I love the Infernal Guard. You have to take a unit of them. I only run the one, and competitively, I think you are only running the one, unless you're finding a way to make Iron Swarm work. In which case, and this is a really good thing to know, you only have to take 1 unit of these. But if you take them as a unit of a detachment of 5 to your Iron Swarm, that works.
Oh,
That
that's
counts
pretty
in
cool.
terms of list building. So that is a way, let's say you wanted to, because if you're taking Iron Sworn, it means that you're going to be sacrificing a decent bit of board presence. Let's say you just take your 5 Infernal Guards so you can load up on Hobgoblins and really capture the board that way. You're taking a lot more Hobgoblins and Black Orcs. So then you just take your 5 Infernal Guard. It's a lot more points efficient that way. Regimental units and detachments are very good as well. It's just a strong special rule to have.
Do be careful because if you have a detachment unit stood next to your big beefy unit that's got a BSB in it, they will probably charge into the detachment instead. So you need to try and make sure that you are positioned in a way where you're not just giving away 3 points. So next up, can we talk about the Kadai Fireborn? These are stunning models. Unfortunately, you just don't
Hmm.
really see too much of them in this edition. I know they're not the best rules wise, But do you think there's any uses for these in competitive
Yeah,
games, or are they
you
just kind
could
of stuck on the shelf for home funsy games at the moment?
competitively, you'd be mad to take them, unfortunately. As much as I love them, and could I, every single type of could I love them, and I love the concept of these bound fire demons. The reason why you wouldn't take these is because they've only got a 5 of regen. They're monstrous infantry with 2 wounds for 40 points. It's just not cost efficient. The way to make them work, if you are dead set on them, is you buff them up with elementalism and demonology, and throw them at stuff and get them into combat as fast as possible. So that's using things like travel, mystical pathway, and earthen ramparts to make sure that they're getting to where they need to be unscathed. So 5 up wards and a bit of teleport. They are infantry, so you can Steed of Shadows them, and you can put the demonology buffs on them to get them up to toughness 5, movement 7 as well. So there's ways to make them work. You've just got to be really invested in them to make them work. I call them the turkey of the list because, much like turkey, you can make it taste nice, but put that much effort into anything else and it will taste nicer.
So yeah, just get some like little cranberry sauce of some magic, a little
Yeah,
garnish of some, of some nice tactics.
yeah, you could do it, but you'd be better off doing it to anything else. But you can do it.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the models are absolutely stunning. I mean, if you've got loads of these kicking
Yeah.
around from 8th edition, you can definitely have some fun with them. I just think if you're gonna try and win an event, potentially build into something else.
Yeah, that's not to say you're not taking them with you because they make great unit fillers for your hobgoblins on 50s.
Or just any of the units, actually. Like going into any of the dwarf units to make a really, really nice unit filler.
Yeah. So don't sell them. Just change the bases. Bang them on at 50. It'll be fine.
So next up, we are going to be looking at the Hobgoblin Cutthroats and the Sneaky Gits. So one of these you see in most lists because they're absolutely amazing, and then one of them you don't really see in too many. I would like to see more of these because I think some of their special rules are quite good on the Sneaky Gits. But why are
Sure.
you taking the Cutthroats?
They're 3 points for a short bow. That's it. They are the cheapest bow in the game. These cost less per model than a weapon upgrade does on a unit. You know, it's you'd be mad not to. With levies as well, it means that you can really be quite risky with them, and it doesn't matter because it means they're not panicking anything that isn't levies. They've got backstab. They're close order for 3 points.
That's
So it just
insane.
means that you could, yeah. So you have your Wyvern or your Lamassu or your Bull Taurus tagging down a dragon. You chuck 2 of these into it, and you're just like, yeah, cool. +3 combat res off of 60 points.
And they're
Mm.
so, so good. If you're not taking these in your army, I definitely think you've been sleeping on these 100%.
Yeah, 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 yeah. If you're running 30, 40, 50 man bricks, you can get them up to Legion 10 quite fast with Warband and a character in them. And even that only works itself out to being like 200 points. It's nothing. The sneaky gits are great. Different reason though. You're not taking these to death by a million cuts. What you're taking these for is an ambushing unit that's got 2 hand weapons and thrown weapons. So they're coming onto your opponent's back line or into a little corner of the board, or even just using them as skirmishers with move through cover to throw themselves up one side of the board, although they are only moving 4. But then you're getting them into a really annoying place. And against archers, 10 of, because you have to take them in tens, 20 thrown weapon shots at strength 3 will kill most things, you
Yeah, I
know?
mean, I think a really good tactic for these would be shutting down enemy artillery because all you've got to do is ambush them on, move them up, and then the next turn charge into that artillery. And even if you don't kill the artillery, you've locked that up so it can't shoot any of your stuff. So that's probably
You
one of
might
the
even
best
kill it with
uses
the
for
pot
these.
shots. 20 shots at artillery, you're hitting on 4s because they're ballistic skill 4. Sorry, 3s because it's a thrown weapon. So you can march and shoot these as well. Haven't found any use for them yet personally in my games because I don't play that way. I have 2 big flying monsters, but then if you're going the infantry route, that's where these really come in key. So again, this is why I keep saying how your Infernal Guard, how that loadout changes your army. If you're taking a brick of Infernal Guard, take Sneaky Gits because you've got flanks that are then exposed. I don't really have any flanks in my army because I'm taking such small units and so many of them. But if you've got
Yeah.
a 20 or a 30 or a 40 man unit, you have got flanks that are going to need protecting. The sneaky gits are a great, great usage model for that.
Yeah, plus if you're running the foot slogging army, you've then got something that can come up and try and just really annoy, say, like wood elf players, because they'll be sitting
Mhm.
black shooting you as you're moving up towards them, and then suddenly they've got to worry about some stuff ambushing potentially behind them, or just pushing them into a really annoying position.
Yeah, these are rinse wood elves because you're
Hmm.
coming on. You'll try to say you move on 8 inches away. That'll be your point of ingress, and you can move 4 inches. So you're 4 inches away from them at that point, and then you throw 20 shots at them. And I keep hammering home it's 20 because you can't take fives. So you throw 20 shots at them, just units of five. So you just probably killed a unit of archers on the spot.
Yeah, you could potentially do a pincer as well, where they can't evade from both units. Like you could potentially do that.
And these have got evasive themselves. So you can do the whole thing that they're doing to you, you can do it back to them. Yeah, great little unit. I my only thing that would make them amazing is if you could take them as close order, but they have to be skirmishers. So it means the only character that you can put in here and keep them as skirmishers is a Khan, although that will turn off the ambush, so watch it. But Khans in these units are scary, very scary.
Yeah, so another unit that the Khans are pretty scary in is the Hobgoblin Wolf Riders. Just generally down to the speed, the fact that they can be skirmish. So these can just kind of like zoom about the board, 360 charge arc as well. Like I don't need to tell you why skirmishers are good, but the
Yep.
fast cavalry and skirmishers with Swift Stride as well, it's pretty naughty.
And then it's those two special rules that you can have not 1 per 1,000, feign flight and reserve move. So if you're taking one unit of these, you put both of them on. If you take 2 units of these, you still take both of them. Because then if you've got a Khan with the ruby ring in this unit, it means that you can pop him out from behind a hill, shoot the ruby ring, and go and disappear. You can do that all game, and just have him out on the flank where the enemy wizard isn't. So it's a 50-50 chance near enough every turn that you're going to cast 2d6 strength 4 hits at something, and watch your 70, 80 point Khan suddenly earn loads of points because the enemy is too scared to throw their usual anti-chaff at that because you've got a Khan with a great weapon and a bunch of spears in there with a charge range of 18 inches, and you've got warband. It's so good. Um, yeah, they're phenomenal. Keyword soup is what I call them because they've just got so many. So it's important to notice the unit itself doesn't have warband, but if you've got a Khan nearby, not inside, that boy does. So a nice tactic that I've used is not to have the Khan in the unit of Wolf Riders next to, and then you can fire him out, go and charge something, and an 18-inch charge he's decently likely to make with Warband and Swift Stride.
Yeah, I've seen these used quite well, and they can be a bit annoying. It's like I said earlier, these coming up the flanks to try and either get some flank or some rear charges in your units, or to deal with those little small missile units are really,
Yeah.
really good. Also amazing for going after lone artillery because you just kind of really can't deal with them until they're right next to you. So very, very good unit. So next up, we're going to be looking at the Bull Centaur renders. I love these guys. Unfortunately, they are quite expensive, so I
Mm.
don't know how much they're going to be making it into those top lists, but I think you can definitely have fun with them.
So now that if we see less dragons, these have got a place. Because the problem that they've got right now is people compare them to dragon ogres because they're monstrous cav with 3 wounds. I get that, and their movement 7. Big differences between dragon ogres and these, though. Dragon ogres are tank units, and you might say, "Oh, these are toughness 5." I'm getting there. These aren't tank units. These are glass cannons. They might have lower attacks and they might have higher toughness, but they do D3 impact hits, AP2 at strength 4. They are loners, but so is the Tauruk, so you can put a Tauruk in this unit. They can take great weapons. They have Swift Stride. They have Black Shard armor as standard. They have ensorcelled weapons as standard, so running them just hand, weapon, and shield, respectable still. There are a lot of ways to get good stuff out of this, and being able to put a magic standard for 50 and magic items of 25 on a champion, pretty cool. The standards I really think work on here. If we get a resolved situation in terms of armor bane and impact hits, the razor standard becomes an auto take. As it currently stands, it's a bit of a grey area and it becomes TO dependent and table dependent. There's no hard and fast answer, but a lot of people have sided on the armor bane doesn't apply to impact and stomp, which is fine.
I mean, that definitely is probably going to be coming at some point. So hopefully that will get cleared up and we'll have a definite answer on that soon.
If it lands on the side of armor bane applies to impact hits, these guys get really good really fast because then you chuck the razor standard on them, so they're AB2. That means they can do AP4 impact hits.
Ooh,
Anything
we like,
needs to respect that.
yeah, we like a bit of AP4.
Yeah, the Rampager standard for re-rolling charges on this, very useful, or even just the War Banner, very useful. The Chaos Dwarf banners aren't really that great, so it's not worth talking about them that much. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff you can do with this unit. It just requires you to have a meta that doesn't have too many dragons in it, because a dragon will literally just walk up to this and kill them.
Yeah. So what would you take on these? Would you take great weapons or would you take the hand weapon and shields?
If I'm running them just by themselves, I take them with shields because unfortunately you can't take both. If you could take both, oh, that'd be amazing. But no, I take them with shields. And I give my Bahal, who is the champion, I probably give him a sword of might, just to pump him up a little bit. And I take him in a 3. If I'm putting the Tile Rook in here, I think I put great weapons on them, screen them heavily because they aren't large targets. So I'll be taking some Wolf Riders, as they are levies, they won't panic them. I'll take some Wolf Riders to screen them and make sure these guys get into the combats they want to get to. Because taking a unit of 10 Wolf Riders or 2 units of 6, for example, to screen a 300-point unit of renders, totally worth it. And
Yeah,
then when these
completely.
get in, they don't stop hitting. They really don't. With that impact hits. And if you do lose that combat, stubborn. And their leadership 8 standard, so pretty handy. There's a lot of play for them. I'm going to try and make them work as efficiently as I can get some of the other units to work in here, but it's very meta dependent because, like I say, big flying monsters just walk up and eat them because the best armor save you're getting is a 4 up. So they'll just munch through them, unfortunately.
It is a little bit of a shame because they are just kind of a slightly worse dragon ogre, aren't they?
I mean, they're 1 less wound than a Dragon Ogre. They're 1 less armor save than a Dragon Ogre. The trade-off that you get for that is instead of stomps, they have impact hits that are doing AP, and they have Swift Stride. Swift Stride in a dwarf list, Richie. You'd kill for these.
I know, I know. Hopefully, at some point, we'll maybe get some like goat riders or some pig riders or something. That'd be really good. And then I can be
Now,
like, I'm not slow.
yeah. Unfortunately, it's a spoilt for choice option because you've got the Wolf Riders, which give you your speed element. You've got the Iron Demons that give you your punch, and you've got the Black Orc on Wyvern or Black Orc on Chariot that can really do stuff. If you build into this and you work hard and you try hard, again, we're talking some Elementalism Sorcerers to give them some ward saves moving up the board, travel mystical pathways to get them where they need to be for with a 12-inch teleport. You could really do some work with them. But you got to think a bit. It's not as plug and play.
Yeah, I think it's like any of the armies that isn't the obvious meta choice armies. I think you definitely have to kind of build into it from the ground up, work out what you're going to do. Your deployment works towards it, your tactics work towards it, and all of your
Mhm.
unit choices have to be thought about ahead of time. And you need to really work out what you're going to do from the ground up, I think, rather than just being like, I'm just going to put a dragon.
Yeah, exactly. Because unfortunately, if you do come up against an opponent with 3 dragons, like a Chaos list, and you've got a Bull Centaur army, you're not going to have a great game. You're really not.
No, unless you're
It's
like a
unfortunate.
tactical genius and you manage to completely outplay them and their dice roll
Then
is
it
really
doesn't matter
poor.
what you're bringing at that point. You could bring just like Dwarf Rangers in units of 5s and win that game.
Well, I don't know.
You could take Minotaurs and Flagellants. There you
Well,
go.
I did hear that one
Um,
Minotaur can kill a dragon.
It can, it can. A Doom Bull, certainly. I reckon a Doom Bull can one-hit a dragon. I've got a Doom Bull build that can knock a dragon off its head.
So the Iron Demon, I personally think is one of the strongest things in the entire list. It's an annoyance to deal with. It's toughness 7. It's got an organ gun on it, which is actually
Mhm.
kind of hitting better than ours because it can move and shoot at the same ballistic skill that ours is, which is annoying.
Yeah, one of these goes in your list. So you have the Infernal Guard, which are 1+. The Iron Demon may as well say 1+ as well, because even if it's a fun list, you're still taking this because it's a goddamn train. Why wouldn't you? Unless you're me. Mine's a Rhino. But yeah, mine's a Rhino with 2 giant cannons on its back. It's a real fun mod by Lost Kingdom. So why do you take the train? It's toughness 7 with 7 wounds, a 3-up armor save, and also you just give it Hellbound for 35 points. It's not an option, you do, because that makes it cause terror and gives it a 6-up ward
Yeah,
against
why wouldn't you
non-magic.
take that?
Why wouldn't you take that? And it gives you a once a game reroll. The other thing that's even better about this, when Richie rolls 2 misfires, his blows up, potentially. When we roll 2 misfires, we lose a mood and carry on. It's got a gigantic threat range because of lumbering destruction. Now it's only movement 5, but it can never march You roll the dice in your movement phase. As long as you don't roll a 1, you get to move that much extra. If you do roll a 1, you're not moving. Now, this might sound a bit crap to some people, but when the steam tank tries this, it loses a wound. We just stand still. We're great. Yeah, it's phenomenal. The Skullcracker, again, it falls into the camp of if Armor Bane applies to Impact and Stomp, this thing gets really good because you're paying 10 points to lose your gun, get in Armor Bane 1 and double your impact hits. So you're playing into it. That just there, that Skullcracker line makes me think that it might land on the Armor Bane applies to impact hits. Because otherwise, what's the point?
So I think if you're running a faster army that you've got your Tauruses in, then you definitely want to take the organ gun. But I think if you're going down the route of a more static gun line kind of army, I think there is room for the Skullcracker in this because as they're coming
Mhm.
towards your gun line, you can then charge these out last minute and try and get some impact hits and pin stuff.
And God Almighty, if you get the charge off on this, it's going to
Yeah,
cause some mayhem. That's strength 8, potentially AP3 impact hits, and up to 14 of them. Good God. Now, the one thing which
savage.
I do find really strange about this is it doesn't have first charge. I just found that weird. It's got to be the only heavy chariot in the game that doesn't have first charge.
Yeah,
Just an
well,
odd
I
one.
suppose it's a tank.
It is a tank. It doesn't do a first charge. It does a grind forever. Like I said, it's a chariot. That means your demon smith sorcerers will not be able to re-roll and use their engineer ability on this. Not that it needs it. It brings its own once per game.
So we've already spoke about why you're going to be taking the Tauruses. They're just brilliant. The 3-up ward save against flaming is just crazy, and you're probably going to want to put your profits on them. But we are going to just drop on the Lamassu for a second. And why do you want to stop on this, Tom?
So if we're going to see a lot less dragons in the game and we're going to start seeing a lot more blocks and wedges of units, that means that we're probably going to start seeing a lot more foot sorcerers as well, or cavalry sorcerers. Lots of them, though. Now, this thing's got magic resistance 3 built into it. It's got fly 9, and for 15 points, that's 110 total for the model. You gain a strength 4 AP2 breath weapon with magic attacks. Also, any model that attacks this doesn't count as having a magic weapon, just a hand weapon instead. Now, there's a lot of play there that I think right now, like if we're talking about War in the Heartlands, LGT, and the last few TSNs I've been to, no, I'm not taking one. Come to me in 3 months, I probably am, because we've moved out to this much wider board meta where I'm going to need something to move in and shut stuff down and be offensive without going into combat. And they're really cool, man. They're really cool models.
Rule that turns it into a hand weapon. So does that get rid of all of the magical effects of that weapon as well?
Turns off your runes, baby.
Woo! Horrendous.
Yeah,
Horrendous.
and also it turns it into a simple hand weapon. So let's say you've ruined up your great weapon, turns it into just a hand weapon.
Ooh, spicy.
Yeah, which is really cool. So it does mean you can launch him into your dwarf lords and stuff like that, because their dwarf lords are probably the people who are tooling up their weapons. You've got to be aware that you're not going to be doing much back to him because it only does one attack with AP. So you've just got to be a bit careful there. It only has 3 attacks basic as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, this isn't something to go into combat on purpose. This is something to fly around, and you can be a little bit secure knowing you've got a turn to rescue him. He's not winning that combat, probably not, but he's probably not going to take that much damage from it. He is a monstrous creature as well, which means that he's not getting stomped on by dragons with AP.
Yeah. Charge him into the Duke or the Barons as well, maybe.
So that frontier acts off.
Yeah, exactly. Could be a nice fun one to play into Exiles. I think there'll
Yeah.
definitely be a bit more play into this in the future. Right, so next we're going to start looking at the artillery. Tom has started taking a lot more artillery in his list. I will be sharing up Tom's list after we finish talking about these, where I'll get him to quickly run through it for you as well. And I'll also share some pictures of his army as well, which is absolutely stunning, which has won Best Army at quite a few events now.
Thank you.
So yeah, no problem at all, mate. It is a very nice looking army. Right, so with the artillery, we're starting with the Death Shrieker rocket launchers. These
Mm.
are just a little bit crazy. I think there's a lot of armies that would absolutely love strength 6, d6 damage
Mm.
with bombard as well. Like I think a normal
Yeah.
dwarf army would probably kill for these. I mean, we do get a higher strength with our bombard weapons, but we are only d3 plus 1 damage, and also our cannons only being d3 damage kind of makes these look absolutely broken.
Yeah. Now the upgrades on them, Hellbound, pretty cool, gives it magical attacks. But the big drawback of taking Hellbound on this is if you roll a misfire, you have to drop it by -1 on the table. So yeah, you are probably never going to misfire with it, but the time you do, it's probably blowing up. So be careful. You're still getting the 6-up ward, but it's only toughness 6 with 3 wounds, so it's not as survivable. You need to protect these boys. The demo rockets mode Richie just spoke about is D6 wounds. Everything in the game needs to respect this. Everything. So this has a higher likelihood of winning the artillery fight because you only need average rolls, whereas other artillery pieces need max rolls to kill you, or medium to max rolls. Dragons, this thing is really gnarly against dragons, especially if they're not the big ones. If they're the baby high elf ones, these can just suddenly wipe 80% of their wounds in one shot. Chariots need to be very scared of these. They're great. The other mode, the Infernal Incendiaries, also phenomenal. All of this from one model is just great. So you're coming up against, let's say you're fighting Troll Horde, and a unit of trolls has just gone a little bit out of that command range. Let's drop some Infernal Incendiaries. I'm only looking for the 1 wound here. Their leadership, what, 2? Let's just panic them away and just get them gone. Also, if we're seeing these, we keep talking about it, these massive wedges that are going to start appearing. Here, have a 5-inch template. I don't care, it scatters, it's hitting something. And then you're going to panic and you're going to run away, hopefully, maybe.
I've spoken about this before on the channel that I love stuff that's versatile, and I think the immense versatility in this, whether it be able to deal with war machine monsters or even just with units, I think that definitely means that you should be looking at taking 1 or 2 of these.
Mm.
Just for the versatility, like they're amazing, they're so good.
1, I think, goes in. 2, if you start putting 2 in, I think then you need to think about babysitting them with the sorcerer and some other little units. There you got its big brother, the Dreadquake.
I love the Dreadquake and hate it at the same time. If you haven't seen the rules for this, it's basically a bombardment stone thrower. So what you'd expect from a mortar, basically, but it is slightly lower
Mhm.
strength. So it's strength 3 and strength 6 in the center hole with AP 3 in the center hole as well. But one of the best rules for this is the fact that it reduces your movement by 1, which does stack. So if you have 2 of these going off, you can reduce movement by 2, which suddenly means a dwarf is movement 1. I've had that done to me. It's a
Mhm.
nightmare. But it's also D6 damage, which is horrendous. But the big thing about this is that it shuts off Swift Stride. But you need to be really careful with this because it shuts off your own Swift Stride as well. So if you've got your Wyvern at the top of the board or you've got your Taurus, suddenly you're losing your own Swift Stride, which can lose you the game. So you need to be really careful with that.
You've got the upgrades here, Ogre Hellbound, and Steam Carriage. Now, the reason I dropped this from my list is because I inadvertently cheated all the time. There is a rule here called slow reload. So you have to roll the dice and see if you can shoot the ogre, makes it better. I just forget to roll that every game. So because I know myself, I took it out because my opponents don't deserve that. So know yourself as a player too. So I apologize to everyone I've done that to. But I
Bit
think I
of
only ran it.
casual cheating in Warhammer.
Casual. I ran it at 1 tournament and I think I placed like 6th, so it clearly didn't matter. It was at LGT. I didn't do very good at that event anyway. It's just yeah, these are cool and they're a lot more survivable than your normal war machine. They've got 5 crew wounds with the ogre loader. It might survive the charge off of something small like Furies, or Harpies. A Knights are still going to pound them, but hey ho, it is what it is.
These are very good. But yeah, I think if you're running a mainly kind of tacked into the dwarf list where you're kind of chilling back and using bombarding out, these are going to really find their place. If you're running stuff that's going to be relying on Swift Stride for you to do the damage, potentially don't take these. So next up, we've got the Magma Cannon and the Hobgoblin Bolt Thrower. So the Magma Cannon is not amazing. It's a flamethrower. At the moment in the meta, the flamethrowers aren't very good. But like we were saying earlier, if we do get those massive units start to come into play of the massive lightly armored units, I think that the flame cannons are going to have their time to shine. So potentially in the future, we could be rolling out 2 or 3 of these.
And these also they work a bit better than your one as well because of this. This is the one unit where I think Steam Carriage actually I have to put it on here. So what that allows you to do is tow with the Iron Demon one of your artillery pieces with Steam Carriage, and it doesn't count as having moved as long as it ends its movement within a certain range of the Iron Demon. So that means that you can really you can swing a magma cannon around your Iron Demon. So it moves 5, and you can actually end up moving this magma cannon like 16 inches and then firing it off at something. So there's play there, but it's only toughness 6, 3 wounds with a 5-up save. So it means if you don't kill that thing, it's probably killing you.
Like, I think in the current meta, you're probably not going to see these, but something that you are probably going to see is the Hobgoblin bolt throwers. Now, in the Dwarf army, these aren't very good. And the reason they're not very good is because mine come in at a base of 55 points, and they're the same ballistic skill as these Hobgoblin bolt throwers. So, yeah, cool. We might have a slightly higher toughness in combat, but these coming in 10 points cheaper, which means if you take 3 of them, it's 30 points cheaper, and
Mm.
they also hit exactly the same. So I think in a Chaos Dwarf army, these are very good, actually.
Yeah, they're really good. Again, if you are leaning into a more static style of list, you would take 2 immediately. I think if you're not taking the Iron Demon and you're going down the Foot Slogger route instead, then yeah, you take 2, maybe even 3, and pose them on either flank. They they are only T4, so be careful. Light bow fire will kill these. So pop them in a wood, because you do need to be aware of small arms fire. But they're phenomenal for their points. I don't think there's a better artillery piece in the game.
No, no, especially in your army, like absolutely brilliant.
And that's it. I mean, I say that's it. We've also got 2 other listings, which is the Black Orc War Boss and the Black Orc Unit. They're in Ravening Hordes. They're phenomenal. There's no bad way to run them. I've messed around with just a Black Orc on a boar going off and just being an absolute nuisance to things at -5 to hit. Actually do that. It's nutty. But yeah, there's all sorts of fun stuff you can do. So we've got the magic items too. Like in all lists, there's good ones, there's bad ones. Now we spoke about earlier that convince your friend to let you run the overseer on the bull. In which case, there's some really cool things here. Dark Maul and Black Hammer on him would both be really sick. But you're not putting any of these on your sorcerers. And the bottom 2 would just be rubbish. It is what it
Yeah,
is.
I think because there's so many good common items, like this edition, the common items are really, really good. You're probably more likely to take those on your heroes instead. Which I don't know
Yeah.
if that's good or bad for the game. That the common items are better than a lot of the book ones. I'm not sure,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean they're okay. I
Well, the
mean the
Black
Black
Hammer.
Hammer's okay. I just think
Line
it's
that up to Ogre Blade. It's 5 points more for Ogre Blade, and you get an extra point of AP for Ogre Blade.
right. So we'll skip those and we'll go straight down to the magical armor, the talismans, and the magic standards.
Mm.
So, which one of these do you reckon you would be taking? So, for me personally, I quite like the Mask of the Furnace. Mantle of Stone, I think, is an auto include, like whether you're going to add one of them or 2 of them. And then obviously the banner of Lamassu's beard, which we've spoke about before.
Yeah, I mean they're all really good. Ashen Banner's quite nice as well. -1 to hit in the shooting phase. Although let's be honest, most of the really scary shooting is either not rolling to hit or has got crazy high ballistic skill or is fishing for poison. Overseer's Sigil. Now this one's a fun one. Whilst within 9 inches, friendly units lose levies. So this is a really common build where you chuck this on your dwarf warriors because it's only 25 points, and then all of your hobgoblins within 9, and you surround the unit with them, lose levies. So you've currently then got leadership 10 hobgoblins in units of 10. Just be careful because then if they start breaking, your whole army is going to start running away real quick. So just be careful. I don't think there's a bad magic armor. I don't think there's a bad talisman. Hellshard's really funny on a dwarf champion. So when he does lose that challenge, D6 strength 5 hits at 81 to the guy who killed him. It's just a nice little screw you from across the grave. Really cool. And if you're playing against dwarves, Shroud of the Ancestor on your Iron Sworn or Bull Centaurs is terrifying. Gives the whole unit hatred dwarves.
That is also going in the book.
Yeah. Yeah. Those that march beneath this black pennant, supposedly torn from the corpse of an unnamed ancestor in ages past, seethe with rage. I think we nicked one of your mate's coats. Um,
Yeah.
that's what it sounds like.
Bastards! Right, so next up we've got the enchanted items and the arcane items. Now, there's a fun little build that you can do of the Lamassus here with the Bresh of Hashut, so you can get a couple more of the breath weapons kicking off, which, like we
Mhm.
said, if we're going down into that big units of goblins, could be quite deadly.
It's such a shame it's single use. It would have been great if it was double the points, but you could use it every turn. You
Oh,
know,
that'd be brilliant.
would have been great. And I'd have happily paid 50 points for that because 2 breath weapons coming out of one model. Yes, all good. Demonic Familiar, nice and fun, turns down wards and regens by 1 to 6. So that can really punk certain builds. I am very close to. So in my triple Taurus build that I'm thinking of, one of them has Familiar, and his entire job is to go up to Sisters of the Thorn and go, no, less of this, less of this, and just kill them. That's what he's in there for, and that's it. He's all, Obsidian Man Braces are also great. I said I run that, so they're really nice. From the arcane items, Demon Flask, very cool. but very expensive for what it does. I just love the idea of a dude opening a can of Dr. Pepper and then everyone just runs away from the demonic hiss that comes out of it. Because that could mean you do this to a dude on a Lamassu or a bull, 18-inch, everyone does a panic check. That could win you the game. Win you the game.
Definitely win you the game. Like if you get some late turn panics going off and everything starts running when you've got some really big gribblies in the middle of it that can just chase them down. Yeah, good. If you can get those
Yeah, you've
units
killed
down
their
to below 25% and they start panicking, whew, it's not good.
yeah. So you've killed their general. Let's say you're going up against orcs and goblins because they're one of the bigger issues right now. You've killed their general. You've whittled their units down so their warband isn't great, but you haven't managed to break them. Then you pop Demon Flask on turn 5, and everything starts running away. You could win just off of that. You know.
Yeah.
Vial of Lamassu Blood, pretty cool. It's an old school Dispel Scroll. And Scroll of Binding. Now, this one's quite cool because it's better than your Dispel Scroll that you get in the big rulebook. Because that one's 3d6, pick the highest two. This one's just straight 3d6. So 30 points, at 10 points more, you just get a 3d6 Dispel. So that's quite nice as well. But the
Just don't
problem
roll
is,
3 1s.
just don't roll 3 1s. Well, don't roll 2 1s because it's still a miscast. But yeah, the problem with those arcane items is I always find I'm being offensive with my casters, not defensive, and all of those are defensive.
Yeah, I think with those though, if you are going to run that build where you just sit back and play like a dwarf artillery gun line, then those really come into it. Like I
Oh
do get
God.
Vial of Lamassu Blood is quite expensive. Like it's 15 points more than the dwarf one, but I don't know. It's got uses. Like if you've got one spell that's going to come in and absolutely destroy you, so like a pillar or a column of crystal or a miasmic mirage, something that is going to probably win them the game, then you just pop this off and then you've got another turn where you can try and pull that back.
Yeah. What's important to know about the Bible Lamassu Blood as well is you can give this to a level 1, and you can use it to dispel a remains in play spell at the start of your turn. Then, so mirage things like that. Even if they've got it off on the double 6, this little level 1 can just go up and go. So it could be something to pop on your level 1 who's babysitting the artillery if you feel like Ruby Ring's not worth it for you.
Yeah, that's kind of a tactic that I quite like using as well. Is if they've miraged you and they've got that off and they think you're not going to be able to move, they probably might not put the column down and then try and do some other stuff. So then you can just pop that mirage off with a Rune of Spell Breaking or the Lamassu Blood in this case,
Yeah.
and then they potentially might have not moved some of their stuff out of the way because they think that you're trapped.
Or if it is the column, they might have bunkered something behind that column which they don't want you to touch. It disappears and suddenly you can go into it. Oh, yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here. Also for pillars, just causing mayhem with your army. Good way to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, because they do. I mean, obviously, your army with the Black Shard armor's got a better resistance against that, but it's still annoying.
If you're running 150 goblins in 6 units, though, you're going to want to get rid of that pillar real fast.
Yeah.
Real fast, you know?
Right, so next up, we've got the Chaos Dwarf special rules. So, are there any that we haven't spoken about going through?
I mean, Resolute we didn't speak about because I feel like it's a given, but it's the same as what you guys get. -1 flee and pursuit rolls.
Because you got little short legs.
Blazing Body, I don't think we touched on specifically, but you Kadai get this and your Tauruses get this. So the big ones, not the Bull Centaurs. This is a really handy little thing for getting rid of champions pre-challenge. Doesn't count towards combat res, but it's a single strength 3 hit AP nothing for everyone in base contact. So this is really nice when you're charging into an undead unit, say, nail their unit champion, and now you can get the good thing. They either have the choice to challenge you out now with their BSB or their Necromancer, or you just hit him because you're in the front rank next to him. So really handy thing for doing that with both Kadai and with the Bull Centaur. Not Bull Centaur, the big Bull.
It's a kind of a fun little rule because a lot of people don't think it's that good, but I have had it used against me, and it's surprising how many wounds that this can actually just kind of pip through because you're not going to roll well for your saves all the time.
So it's removing attacks back to you, but it's not causing anything for combat res. So it's a great defense play. And it's free. You're not paying for it on anything.
No, which is amazing. So I don't think we can talk about the Dawizar without mentioning the Law of Hashut. Unlike their dwarven cousins, these can actually use magic, and they do have some really good spells. The standout spell for me is the Storm of Ash, which I've spoke about a couple of times during this video, where they can -1 hit modifier to units within 9 inches of them, which is amazing.
However, if you're coming up against Tomb Kings, for example, or let's say you're coming up against vampire counts that aren't running on Mortis engines, Curse of Hashut becomes really good, really fast. do a toughness test, and if you fail it, D3+2 strength 5 hits with no armor or regen saves allowed. So you can just snipe Hierophants with this. It's a signature spell, so you don't have to commit to this as well. You can think, right, I'm running Storm of Ash, and I've done this myself. I've run Storm of Ash for 4 out of 5 games. I came up against Tomb Kings. They don't care about minuses to hit. They're all in 5s to hit on everything. And in combat, they're all weapon skill 1. Who cares? Being flippant, but you get my point. So Curse for Shut suddenly gets in really good, and also then Flames becomes good in that same situation. A single unit the enemy's in combat with suffers D3+1 strength 4 hits with AP1. Now you might say that's a bit lackluster, but if you've got this and Demonic Familiars, ooh, you might just be doing 20 wounds to a unit, and it's chaff clearance. This is okay, but even against Empire Knights, against Bretonian Knights, you're going to be wounding them on 3s AP1. They're probably going to fall over.
Yeah,
So
I like
yeah,
all of these, to be perfectly honest. Like Storm of Ash is the one that I don't particularly like playing into, but that is because I run ballistic skill and weapon skill like attacks really. But I think all of these are generally quite good. I don't
yeah,
think there's a single bad spell in this really. The Flames of Hashut is probably the worst out of the three, but I think it definitely has uses.
for sure. And then you couple them with the 3 laws which we get, which is Demonology, Dark, and Elementalism. There's a lot of play.
Yeah, I think they can definitely take control of the magic in the game. So next up, we're going to be talking about the weapons of Zargrund. Nagrund. Nagrund.
Zarnagrund!
Now, I want to start this off by talking about naphtha bombs because they are just shit versions of the grenades that their Dowie cousins have.
I'll
So
give you this. You've got one thing better than us. You make better fireworks.
the problem is with that, I don't think we even make them because ours don't have dwarf crafted. So I genuinely think that we stole these from the Empire. So I think the Empire
But
make better grenades.
they actually have like grenade launching blunderbusses and stuff. So yeah. That makes sense. That tracks. Naphtha bombs, you can give them to a few characters, and most of the unit champions don't, mate. Just don't. What's the fucking point? Like, save your points. Buy 2 hobgoblins instead, because these are 6 points. 2 hobgoblins are going to do more for you than that will. Um, the good thing on this page, though, is Dark Forged Weapon. If you remember to roll for it, and if anyone has ever played against me, they'll know I remember this roughly turn 2 that I've paid for this. And then I go, oh, do you mind if I roll on this really quickly? Because it might matter now. And if you've got a gracious opponent, they'll say yes. If you don't have a gracious opponent, really good test to find out if they're a cock. But so there's a couple of whiffy ones on here. Most of them are great. You roll a 1, you get flaming attacks. And if you roll a 4, you get magic res 1. Other than that, they're all great. Getting hatred, getting multiple wounds D3, getting +1 strength, and then either getting +1 to cast or +1 AP for 10 points. Yeah, awesome. You give this to all of your characters that are dwarves or centaurs. 10 points. Most of the time, it's better than giving them a magic weapon.
Yeah, I think this is a really good and a really weird kind of rule because it incentivizes you to actually just stick with their hand weapons, really.
Which are still AP1 magical attack.
Yeah, so it's like
You
you're
know,
almost one of the only armies where you're incentivized to take almost the worst weapon because it could turn into the best weapon. It's crazy.
yeah. So for 10 points, I could have a base user strength. So on the centaur or on the seneschal, that's 5. Strength 5, AP1, D3 wounds for 10 points. That's so worth it. You know,
Yeah. So that was our brief rundown of the Chaos Dwarves on what you should take and what's fun. But I think we should probably now have a look at Tom's winning list. He recently managed to win a GT with this. So let's have a look and his reasoning behind the units. And then I can show you some pictures of the army as well. So do you want to show us your army, Tom, and what you did? Do you want to show us your army, Tom, and what you took and your reasonings behind taking them?
absolutely. So my general was the level 4 sorcerer prophet on the Bale Taurus. He is one of the real centerpiece units of the army, both in terms of the painting composition, but also the way that the army works. I run him with Mantle of Stone, Obsidian Vambraces, Armor of Meteoric Iron, and Talisman of Protection. So this means he's got a 5-up, 5-up that's never going away. He's toughness 7 with 7 wounds and magic resistance 1. Winner. The +1 strength, a cherry on the top. I've then got my other main piece of the army, and there's 3 main pieces of the army, which is the Black Orc on Wyvern. It's Grimgore. So he's got the build which I've seen most people take now. I feel like I've championed this one, which is the Trollhide trousers, Enchanted shield. Some people run Charm, but I find Enchanted is better. And then he's got the effigy of Morks, who's -1 to hit in combat. This couples phenomenally with Storm of Ash, and he will happily go toe to toe with any single model in the game, and he will eventually win. And it's eventually. I run mine with a great weapon, and the reason why I go Enchanted over Charmed is because I'm looking for the manipulation of the dice to try and get an extra save every single time. It might only be a 6-up ward, but that means I've got 3 chances to get to a success rather than 2 most of the time and a third once. Because if you delve into the maths of it, it actually works out more in your favor. Because the things that these big things die to, most of the time it ain't cannons. Cannons do the start, and then what finishes them off is archers. So many times it's just plink damage finishes them off. So having that extra layer of save against the non-magical really, really assists. The third and final character in my list is a level 1 Demonsmith Sorcerer with the Ruby Ring on Dark Magic. Now, in hindsight, I changed this to Demonology because the reason I took Dark is because Doombolt's easier to cast. But I was casting it so rarely, it wouldn't have mattered. And to have the higher damage output spell, I would have preferred it. His job was just to look after the artillery. I'd sunk 240 points into Death Shriekers. Putting another 90 in to make sure they stayed on the table seemed like a wise decision to make. In core, 10 Infernal Guard with Fireglaves and shields. These guys with shields are nutty. Being able to take a charge from Bretonnian Knights, and I did this in my final game, they held down 6 Bretonnian Knights for 3 turns, and then on turn 4, turned around and killed them. They're brilliant. You have to take 1 unit of them, and this is my preferred way to do it. I've then got 2x12 units of Hobgoblins with bows. They're just there for annoyance purposes. But I will say, in 1 game, I was playing against AD with his Chaos Warriors, and they flank charged the Shartak, and because of backstab, they managed to kill a Dragon Ogre Shartak that was on full wounds. The last bit in my core is probably my favorite unit in the army, which is the Immortals, 15 Black Orcs with full command, with great weapons and shields. I think it's 7 great weapons and 12 shields. And the Angry Lads flag. Now, people question that choice of the magic item a lot. And they say, oh, that's a 250 odd point unit. Why are you going to bait it away with Frenzy? Now, yeah, it does happen sometimes with very, very good players. Or even if I've just made mistakes, they manage to get the Black Orcs into a place they don't want to be. But most of the time, if you charge me, you have to be okay with taking 6 great weapon attacks back because of the way that Motley Crew works. That makes this a terrifying unit. And then if they get the charge off, they're doing 3 attacks each with weapons that are ranging between AP1 and AP4 because of Chopper and Armorbane. They're a really horrifying unit if they start getting the ball rolling and start managing to get a charge into something that keeps falling back in good order. That furious charge keeps proccing, that Chopper keeps proccing, and it just starts getting silly really fast. In special, 2 Death Shriekers, naked. The reason why I didn't put Hellbound on either of this was because I was expecting Warpfire Dragons. And if you shoot them with magical stuff, you give them a ward save. How many Warpfire Dragons did I see, Richie? So it didn't matter. They didn't blow themselves up ever, but they got close. I was very thankful to have the Demonsmith. And then I've got the Iron Demon with Hellbound, and that rounds out the list. It was a high threat projection army where I've got 2 toughness 7 models, 1 toughness 6, 2 flyers, and 2 of the strongest artillery pieces in the game, where it was just overwhelming things with threat. I dropped my first game, and I tend to drop my first game a lot, where I'm just not thinking clearly. And I was speaking to my opponent Matt after the game, and he was like, "Yeah, you just made like 2 or 3 really silly mistakes, which early game, which cost you the late game, and meant you were uphill struggling." He was playing a Night Goblin list with a unit of 60 and 2 units of 30 Night Goblins, with 2 Doom Divers. And yeah, it was a very good player with a very good list that I fumbled. And then I managed to pull the rest of the 4 through. 4 really, really good games. It was a smaller event, but very good players. Really good players. Had to think every single game incredibly hard. And none of the games were a cakewalk. All really great opponents.
And that is 100% what you want. I don't particularly like playing against, say, if you're coming up against something that your army's really good into, I would prefer to play 5 really, really hard nail biter games
Mhm.
where it's just where you just earn those wins. And I really like that. Like if you both have brought an army that kind of don't play into each other really well, then it just becomes down to tactics and down to dice. And those are the best games in my opinion.
100%. And every single one of my games was played to near completion. My Empire game didn't go past turn 4, but we still played for a good 2.5 hours, so that was fine. And yeah, War in the Heartlands, I can't recommend it enough as a event. It had the singular best food that I've ever had at an event, and it was included in the ticket price. So if you are looking at it thinking, oh, it's a bit steep, knock 30 quid off of it for the 2 lunches you're about to receive, because that's the value of it. It's really worth it. And all the event hosts are lovely, lovely people. There was great prizes. There was a raffle bingo thing going on, so you could win. It had to be about 150 quid, maybe 200 quid of total prizes. And then the actual awards that you won, you got a certificate, and then all of them were handmade as well, leather pieces. Really amazing event.
Nice. I'm glad you had a good time. Hopefully, next year we can try and get some more players going to War in the Heartlands, as Liam does run a really, really good event. Right. Well, that kind of rounds up our talk about the Chaos Dwarves. Thank you very much for coming on, Tom. If anybody wants any tips off him on Discord, he is Grunmuck. Some of you might
Mhm.
already know him on there. If you have any questions, please comment down below, and we will see you on the next one. Take care, guys, and thank you very much for coming on, Tom.
Thank you very much, Richie. Bye, everyone.
See ya. Bye.